Benjamin Franklin once said, "A penny saved is a penny earned." With inflation, let's go to a billion saved is a billion earned.
As we near 2025 and the National Act or plan to end Parkinson's Act, we have to be reminded of how money to, I guess, as far as the taking broadband to the rural market has been a boondoggle, and all the billions that have been misspent by the fact that people who understand rural broadband have been ignored.
Okay, this is Herb Lair in my podcast, Finding Your Happy Place. I wanted to talk a little bit this week about a billion saved is a billion earned. And I wanted to kind of tie this into the new year. You know, in 2025, there was a plan to end Parkinson's Act that's going to be, I guess, come to fruition in a sense that there will be a time there where there'll be some funding. I think a lot of things have been discussed about, of course, with Parkinson's, you have to talk about a lot of the research. Now, if you've been following my podcast, you're going to see that I've developed a lot of messages, and you could say it's a group of people that I have found that are, I consider, experts. You know, you'll see the chairman of the Department of Neurology at UMS, and you'll see people that I've come across that have done a lot of things in the, I guess, the treatment and handling of people, and then some general observations of just dealing with people and how best they can be handled. And some of those things have come about through my Rocksteady Boxing, and I've associated with people that have had late stages of Parkinson's, of recognizing they had Parkinson's, and they have done very well in their careers. So a lot of those people are equipped to invest their time and money, and you'll see that between the people with Parkinson's and their friends and family, that there's quite a few people that have a lot of access to capital and income, and it's discretionary in the sense that they're at an age where they can go and do and buy and sell and invest and be philanthropists. So it's a good group of people to know. But I've got to know quite a few of those very well in some of the conversations that I've had and recorded with some of the podcasts. And before the podcast, I did some series on that so I could get interviews. But since I started the podcast, mainly since moving to Little Rock in February, I've kind of focused on developing skills where speech is important, intent to speak is important, and a chance to talk with others and deal with people that make their money from speaking, and also have had family and other situations where they're involved in trying to figure out ways to be helpful in my podcast. So you're going to see a combination there. But one of the things I wanted to get to on Billions Saving Billions is I've done quite a few, reports or information that I've gathered in the past about taking the broadband to the country or to the rural area, and where there were billions wasted. I think there's a way that we can save a lot in the coalition of people I've gathered as far as the act and national plan to end Parkinson's. And I wanted to go back, and since there's some reports just recently, particularly in Arkansas, where they're starting to spend even additional money, how they made a major mistake. I talked about this with what I consider an expert out in San Francisco area.
Okay. Craig Settles has been on CNN and Wall Street Journal,
So
so he's very
wanted to
popular.
make sure that when I write this guide where it tells, where it talks about how to get different audiences or populations connected, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because with the NTIA grant program, right, they have identified 8 populations that they want to make sure are covered by the grants that are awarded from NTIA, right? And one of those
Again, what is the TIA?
NTIA is an agency that is part of the Commerce Department.
Okay, and again, your position is an analyst, and it's in telehealth, and you do work in municipal broadband. Is that correct, or how do you best?
Right.
Okay, that's best.
The community broadband study came first, and then the last few years I have become a outspoken advocate for telehealth, and I'm advocating that these broadband networks that are being built use telehealth on these networks as a way to get these people signed up for the networks. So they all, because the ultimately the goal of the NTIA is to have unserved or underserved populations get online. So that's their primary mission,
Okay.
right? I'm sort of adding on to the mission and saying if you use telehealth to reach these different populations, you will not only get healthier populations, but you also get people signed up for broadband. So it's like a 2-for deal.
Okay.
Arkansas state government has cleared another hurdle in its bid to obtain more than $1 billion in federal funding under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act to expand broadband access in Arkansas. State officials said the natural state has historically struggled to keep pace with other states in terms of broadband connectivity, according to government data. Many counties in Arkansas, especially those in rural areas, face a difficult battle for broadband access. Gov. Sarah Huckabee Sanders and Arkansas State Broadband Director Glenn Howey announced last week that the National Telecommunications and Information Administration has approved the second volume of Arkansas's initial proposal for the BEAD program. The BEAD program is the Broadband Equity, Access, and Deployment Grant Program that provides $42.45 billion to expand high-speed internet access by funding planning, infrastructure deployment, and adoption programs in all 50 states: Washington, D.C., Puerto Rico, the U.S., Virgin Islands, Guam, American Samoa, and the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. The National Telecommunications and Information Administration allocated a portion of these funds to each state to deploy or upgrade internet networks to expand access to reliable, affordable, high-speed internet service, the State Department of Commerce said in its news release. Once Arkansas meets its deployment goals, the state can use any remaining funding on high-speed internet adoption, training, and workforce development efforts, among other eligible uses. In November 2021, President Joe Biden signed the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act into law, which established the BEAD program, the federal government's most ambitious investment in high-speed, affordable internet to date. Arkansas's 6-member congressional delegation voted against the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. The National Telecommunications and Information Administration's approval of the second volume of Arkansas's initial proposal for the BEAD program enables Arkansas to request more than $1 billion in federal funding and begin implementation of the state's BEAD program, according to the State Department of Commerce. Volume 2 of the BEAD initial proposal details Arkansas's plans for operating its broadband infrastructure grant program, requirements for potential applicants, and non-deployment priorities. The State Department of Commerce said the Volume 2 document addresses 16 requirements related to the BEAD program, including program objectives, planning processes, local coordination, and workforce readiness. This announcement of the approval of the second volume of Arkansas's initial proposal for the BEAD program is a significant step forward in realizing our mission to connect the unconnected and empower all Arkansans to self-determine their success in the 21st century digital economy, said Glenn Howey, director of the Arkansas State Broadband Office, in the news release. Once NTIA subsequently approves the state's mapping challenge process results, the Arkansas State Broadband Office stands ready to move quickly and launch the next round of broadband infrastructure grants, he said. Clark Cogbill, a spokesman for the State Department of Commerce, said last week in a written statement that once the NTIA approves our mapping challenge process, we can begin the subgrantee selection process, awarding projects to ISPs, internet service providers, to reach the remaining approximately 84,000 unserved, underserved, and unfunded locations in Arkansas. He said, state officials expect National Telecommunications and Information Administration approval of our mapping challenge process in about 4 to 6 weeks. Cogbill said the subgrantee selection process is scheduled to last for at least 40 weeks. The Arkansas State Broadband Office has 365 days from the National Telecommunications and Information Administration approval of Volume 2 to submit its final proposal detailing its subgrantee selection process and describing how 100% of unserved locations, as counted at the time of NTIA approval of mapping challenge process, will be served within 4 years, he said. Work can begin once the final proposal is approved, Cogbill said. The Arkansas Legislative Council's approval is required each project that the state awards, he said. Cogbill said that while working on our 5-year plan in summer 2023, there were about 190,000 unserved, underserved, and unfunded locations. There are now about 84,000 unserved, underserved, and unfunded locations, he said. Arkansas had the highest percentage increase in broadband availability in the nation from 2021 to 2024, a 9% increase, said Cogbill. The states with the second largest percentage increase in broadband availability during this period included Alabama, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Tennessee, according to a study at HaustonAdvice.com. Gov Sanders, a Republican, said in the State Department of Commerce's news release that reliable internet coverage is becoming a necessity for Arkansans' jobs, schools, and businesses, and closing the internet service gap is a major priority for my administration. And today's announcement is a big step forward in our plans to address the issue. Arkansas Department of Commerce Secretary Hugh McDonald said in the news release that increasing the availability of affordable and accessible broadband to all corners of the state, including rural and underserved communities, is crucial for growing economic opportunities for Arkansans. Broadband is a modern necessity, and expanded access will enable innovative Arkansans to grow businesses, launch new ventures, and build wealth and jobs right here in the natural state, he said.
Again, telehealth is missing.
I guess the project I'm working on, and again, it deals with people with disabilities and looking for their happy place, and also some of the aspects of telehealth that we're kind of dealing with as far as people with disabilities. So I just want to see what your thoughts were as far as our interview, and then we'll go to the final question there.
Yeah, the main thing that I wanted to get is how telehealth can help people with disabilities, right? Because we have these different programs, and the internet programs, digital inclusion programs, and so forth. And there's always a question when it comes to people with disabilities, right? Where sometimes the attempt to try to get more people with disabilities involved in the technology, right? Sometimes it leaves people off the list, right?
Okay.
And so that was my, I think it was one of the questions. But we could talk about that again if you just want to recap what you said.
Okay. Well, I think what I was kind of getting down to was at this point, it was the fact that artificial intelligence and a lot of other things are starting to deal with the data that's gathered, and what's happened is that there's a great amount of data that's being collected, because we know that with people like Epic Systems up in Madison, where my grandson works, and we also know that Apple and Apple Watches are collect. So we want to know that information, when people are traveling or they're with disabilities, that they're not being they're not having to be having to discover a lot of information. We want them to be able to have that information right at their hands. And other people, if there's issues, I know I did Smart 911 at times, and having that information available if something comes up is real important. I think what we were getting to there is there are going to be ways, because it's been done in the past with a lot of behavioral marketing or behavioral gathering of data and target marketing. So that was really kind of where I was wanting to get to, is that point. But I think what the other point was, you got to deal with differences of people and not jump to conclusions, and some of that is having that information available and not being hesitant to have that information available when issues come up. Excuse me.
Right, because it seems like people can make assumptions about the different types of disabilities, right? You have, the main disabilities like, hard of hearing, or hearing impaired, vision impaired, people who can't have mobility issues, and we sort of have that as our barometer. Well, are you one of those? Yeah. Right? Well, if you're not, they may not be able to, they may not have made allowances for people with those particular different types of disabilities. Yeah. So we can't allow either the government or local government to pigeonhole people and say, well, because we have services that cater to these 4 or 5 types of disabilities, that may not be what's enough. And so, like, when you mentioned the point, I think it was your daughter, I think, that has a disability, but it's not one of the the big 4. It's a different kind of
it's a very special issue. It's oral facial digital syndrome, and most people will confuse it with something else of broader terms, as you mentioned. Well, the only thing else, and again, you're a stroke victim, so you probably see that I know a lot of people have different situations after they have a stroke, and it affects them a lot of different ways. I mean, it's not all the same.
Oh, so, definitely.
So you're kind of living that case too. So I understand that, and I'll bring that in that interview and some of the clips I've gotten from him. But one of the big failures was not using telehealth to be the center to draw the attention and investment into putting money into broadband in the rural areas. So what happened is that you started coming up with things. We're going to make broadband available, but that doesn't mean people are going to be educated and be motivated to use broadband. And that's what we're finding is, oh yeah, they got broadband, but they don't know what to do with it and don't care. But if you have an underlying thing such as health and telehealth, then I think you're going to have the motivation to build the broadband, and there may be ways to do that.
Government can lead people to broadband, but can't make them think. Cheaper and better options already in place, fear of not getting what you deserve, being left out, why current broadband economic development plans are not working, also known as broadband, is an enabler, not a panacea. What are the elephants in the room? How the $65 billion bill affects business owners, executives, employees, professionals, government officials, low-income families, seniors, students, educators, politicians, startups, entrepreneurs, urban and rural communities, and working in offices and remote, or everyone. 1. Government can lead people to broadband, but can't make them think. Under the legislation, states will receive large grants to pay for internet improvements. The legislation extends a federal discount on service for low-income families, and it requires clear, uniform labeling of internet prices that will help consumers compare plans and understand the fees on their monthly bills. The bill's language reflects the idea that the broadband situation varies widely across the country, and that state governments are best positioned to know where the gaps are. But here's the catch. Any broadband provider that takes the government handout will be required to offer a low-cost tier of service, satisfying the defined speed requirements in the markets they serve in the state. Proverb: you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. In tech terms, government can lead people to broadband, but can't make them think. From Will Rogers, technocracy wants to do everything by machinery. Machinery is doing just fine. If it can't kill you, it will put you out of work. Best that you know how to make tech your friend and face the consequences. Another Rogers quote, often misquoted: all I know is just what I read in the papers, and that's an alibi for my ignorance. Alibi for ignorance is generally left off, something I will expound on and hopefully remove. Digital equity, inclusion, and literacy programs are implemented. The bill includes $2.75 billion for the Digital Equity Act, which will help states develop comprehensive plans to ensure equal access to the internet for historically underserved communities, and to fund projects that make the internet more accessible, such as Wi-Fi hotspots in schools and digital literacy programs for seniors. The intent is to help close the digital divide, which tends to hit low-income families and communities of color the hardest. But the viewpoint of progressives that fast internet is pointless if people lack the skills or equipment to use it eventually won out. Note, no need to get political on viewpoints, it's reality. The key phrase is literacy programs. Important link for success. Much like business development, many times the missing link when autopsies are done on failures. Clear objectives along with benefits must be included, starting with education and training programs. Classes for students and adults. Low-income families will require monitored incentives and financial assistance to participate. Same for seniors. Rewards for success might include a lower price tier for broadband. Educate on use of broadband for online education, online business, getting best prices, finding best jobs, and how to sell your products and/or services. How to get low-cost medical assistance, telehealth, telemedicine, and monitor lifestyle. Many health issues can now be monitored and avoided through non-intrusive motion-based systems, avoiding video and audio personal privacy issues through Internet of Things, IoT broadband devices. Families with elderly parents or relatives with disabilities living remotely across town or country are alerted real-time when established lifestyle variances, falls occur via their smartphones. Featured on Saturday Today Show, August 21st, 2021, hospital-level care from the comfort of your home, particularly for the rural and underserved markets. I participated in similar remote trials with my UAM's neurologist located in Little Rock. 140 miles away for Parkinson's. Key features of Medically Home's virtual and physical care delivery model include a 24/7 medical command center staffed by an array of clinicians and an integrated care team in the community who deliver care to patients at their bedside. This turnkey, purpose-built care delivery chassis that integrates with the patient's electronic health record. Value must be tangible and immediate. Field of Dreams without passion will become just another subsidized government cornfield withering in the hot Iowa sun. With passion, it can be a true field of dreams. In the article below, I mentioned several people stimulated by passion and opportunities to make their dreams a reality. By finding a need or creating a want, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Kevin Costner. 2. Cheaper and better options already in place. Also removed from the Senate bill were provisions that would have encouraged municipal broadband networks, which are built and run by city and town governments, often in cooperation with private sector companies. Amazing how competition can solve a problem faster, with less cost than relying on the government. If you do your homework, you'll quickly come across the impact Google Fiber had on cable systems. Also, you will find how Google with unlimited resources failed. A lesson for municipalities entering the broadband business. It ain't easy and it ain't cheap. Google Fiber, although unsuccessful, had a major impact on the speed, pun intended, cable operators rolled out next-generation broadband. The original provision didn't make it into the bill, but the Senate bill did adopt a threshold of 100 megabits per second for downloads and 20 Mbps for uploads. Cable companies argued that their networks aren't capable of supporting faster upload speeds and that they weren't needed by most consumers. I cover that in my article below. No one buys a Lamborghini to drive to Walmart. Really? Main point before municipalities get trigger happy, check current broadband services and coverage by telecommunications companies. Amazing how many times I've seen cities fighting a grudge match with your money taxes against a company with services you prefer, again with your money as a subscriber. Simple math, you could theoretically double your costs for broadband. Simple terms, you could end up financially supporting both sides. You might be pleasantly surprised. Look for current broadband availability coverage and download and upload speeds. Note the wake-up call for current broadband providers is developing better programs for the low-income families, finding ways to serve areas that have been redlined as not economical. Major focus of new $65 billion bill something. That could be better addressed jointly with local community leaders, at least in the planning process, which may or may not be expedited with government assistance. 3. Fear of not getting what you deserve, being left out. Consumer Reports supports the right of communities to choose for themselves whether to invest in municipal broadband systems. The same position is held by 3/4 of Americans, according to a recent nationally representative survey of 2,565 adults PDF conducted by CR. Obviously, the right of communities to choose for themselves whether to invest in municipal broadband systems is important. Even with good to great current service, the threat is leverage against quality drop-off or lack of timely innovation. More importantly, in communities with poor or failing broadband service, this right should always be supported. That said, be careful what you wish for. You still have to do your own due diligence to determine what choice makes sense for your community. Don't let inside or outside biased influencers drive your decision-making process. Everyone has a history, good or bad. Seek facts and balance in your discovery. Realizing technology changes rapidly and past decisions made other places with the best technical analysis may no longer be relevant. 4. Current broadband economic development plan not working. Also known as broadband is an enabler, not a panacea. How to determine if your economic development strategy is working. Biggest mistake is thinking that spending millions on broadband alone will cure your economic development stagnation. Broadband is an enabler, not panacea. An example in the editorial on the right, investing in digital, is Clarksville, Arkansas, with 85% broadband coverage and 24.7% poverty level. Additional information not in Article 6.7% annual median home price increase, Clarksville, zip 72,830, has an unemployment rate of 5.2%. The U.S. average is 6%. Clarksville has seen the job market decrease by minus 2.3% over the last year. Newspaper editorial touts importance of municipal fiber-owned network to connect city-owned electric, water, and wastewater utilities, but fails to report any successful economic development results. Electric company has been owned by city, good or bad, for over 100 years. In opposition to the editor's opinion, probably not a good footstep to follow in based on dissimilarities to other cities. How do you measure broadband economic development success? Factors to consider: poverty level, unemployment rate, annual median home price increase, decrease. Having a high poverty level, low unemployment rate, and below average median home price increases are indicators your plan isn't working. What has to be done? Focus on the right thing for your community. Much of the organic growth will come from services, medical, and businesses attempting bidirectionally to reach new opportunities. Tough when you have a high poverty level. Then again, there are new opportunities in education, training, telehealth, and telemedicine. Didn't see it in the editorial. Inorganic will come from business professionals placing a higher priority on quality of life or finding their beach, moving to rural areas from urban confinement created by the pandemic. Digital nomads are a different animal. Make sure you do your research. Determine your community assets and market them. Could be economics, reduced cost of living, outdoor lifestyle, close to lakes or rivers, no crime, great schools, golf courses, fishing, museums, entertainment, sports, research, etc. Check out recent newcomers and build a file on their reasons for move. Nothing more important than anecdotal data and word of mouth. Social media can be your best friend or worst enemy. It's word of mouth transmitted at internet speed. The typical home price in the U.S. is up a record 13.2% compared to last year, according to Zillow. Some parts of the country, Austin, Texas, have experienced 35% increase in median price of housing.
You know that Elon Musk has come up with some different plans that are a little different than what most people might think, and they have to be considered. You can't just go out and expect the broadband, whether it's cable or telephone or even some of the other methods that might be out there in the ISP versions to fulfill that need. So that's the nature of this podcast, is to show that you can save $1 billion, and it's going to be equivalent to $1 billion earned, and I can show you ways that that's happened with people who fail to go to people in broadband who are successful. And I'll take my company as an example. We were able to create a technology company, and we did it for cable TV with software, and we expanded it out to be a national company and then an international company into over 50 countries. And at that time, there was no commercial broadband. So you got to talk to people like myself and others in order to make sure that you don't waste your money again, because there was just a lot of money that's been wasted and it's going to be wasted in the rural broadband project. There will be no need to have that same experience and same waste of money when the national plan to end Parkinson rolls out. And again, that's coming up officially as of January 1, 2025. So I hope you enjoy some of the clips I've put together here, not only of what I'm talking about today, but you can go back and podcast and see the cast of characters and people I've talked to as far as Parkinson's. But you can also, I have some articles that have been written on LinkedIn, and they're timestamped, so there's nothing that I'm backdating or anything like that. They've been out there for several weeks and months and maybe even a year or two that talk about the how the broadband was it has been a big boondoggle for the most part, and it will continue to be with the way it's being handled. And again, that's the reason why I'm doing my podcast and hope to get sponsors and advertisers in order to make my, the message known, and the people that I'm talking with that will be involved in a coalition to solve a problem that can save you quite a bit of money. And that's the idea.
Domain content. Lone wolf howling. Lone wolves howl about technology, rural broadband, and economic development as well. Discover the links between them. Rally the troops. It's game time. Back off. I'm lonely. Woohoo. 1. Rally the troops. If the pack has been splintered during a hunt or is a couple bodies short, wolves will howl to reassemble the group. These howls are usually deep in pitch and very sustained, like a primal homing beacon. Wolves hunt over very large areas, spreading out over miles of land, so getting separated from the pack is a somewhat common occurrence. In the forest, a wolf's rallying call can carry as far as 6 miles, and in a frozen tundra with no trees, 10 miles. This guiding howl is also used to help pups navigate back to their parents should they stray. 2. It's game time. Have you ever been watching a football or basketball game and right before the game starts, a team will huddle up and start pumping each other up? That's exactly what wolves do prior to a hunt. Before a hunt, wolves will often gather for a rowdy howl sesh that serves as an important communal bonding experience for the pack. These social howls involve wolves coming together in close proximity, barking while getting good and amped up before the hunt. This both promotes togetherness between the hairy comrades and gets the blood pumping before they head out on the prowl. Once the stalking has started, however, wolves will fall silent and deadly. Lots of bark before the hunt, nothing but bite during. 3. Back off. Though social howling has been observed within a pack, it also functions as an ominous warning to those who are not welcome. Wolves are extremely territorial and fiercely protective of their pack. This is why wolves will howl to both advertise their territory and send a clear, threatening message to those who may wander too close. This behavior is especially prevalent during mating season, when wolves are extra protective of their mates, pups, and food. A wolf answering an unknown howl from the outside is declaring his intent to stand his ground and for the potential intruder to kindly back the hell off. This is why many lone wolves traveling in uncharted territory will remain silent as to avoid any unnecessary confrontation. 4. I'm lonely. This kind of howl is characterized by rise and fall, often with a slide up or down at the end. Wolves will howl when in search of a mate or in experiencing feelings of captivity or isolation. 5. Woohoo! Wolves have been known to howl simply because they can. Wouldn't you? After a successful hunt, wolves will group together to sing their praise. They seem to genuinely enjoy it. Other members from the pack almost always show a tendency to join in a good howl. Whether this is cathartic or just a comforting bonding moment, it often attracts other members from the pack even at a distance. This community sing truly exemplifies the meaning of wild. Bud Pelzer, the inventor of a spill-proof dog bowl, came to Arkansas in 2014 to convert the abandoned Dog Patch theme park into an ecotourism village, but things didn't work out. As a global business entrepreneur, I met with Bud and his wolf, DIA, to discuss the opportunities to market his spill-proof bowl in South America, Argentina, and Brazil in particular. My anecdotal evidence gathered from all the dog walkers in my numerous trips to Argentina and Brazil gave me some credibility, but things didn't work out. But I digress. Back to subject at hand, rural broadband. 1. Rallying the troops, $4 million call for advisors. Little Rock, the Arkansas Legislative Council on Friday approved the State Department of Commerce's request to use up to $4 million in Federal American Rescue Plan funds to hire a consultant to develop a master plan for broadband implementation after several lawmakers raised questions about the selection and the duties for the consultant. The Department of Commerce, in collaboration with the Department of Finance and Administration and Department of Parks, Heritage and Tourism, has been authorized to hire a consulting firm to formulate the plan. Rural broadband ID program seems to be missing the keyword rural in plan. 2, it's game time. Key players missing in action. Okay, there's this group with no expertise in rural broadband. Must be Arkansas's answer to Rudy. Football, not politics. Okay, could be both. Little Rock, the State Department of Commerce's executive broadband manager, told lawmakers on Thursday that the department should issue a new request for proposals to hire a consultant to develop a statewide broadband implementation plan. Stephen Porch made that assertion before the Legislative Council's Executive Subcommittee, despite the secretaries of the Departments of Commerce, Finance, and Administration, and Parks, Heritage, and Tourism selecting the Broadband Development Group of Little Rock as the consultant. The Commerce Department issued a request for proposals last month. Porch's comments surprised lawmakers on the subcommittee, prompting the 8-member panel to delay action until next week on the Commerce Department's proposed $2.20 million contract with the Broadband Development Group. The Broadband Development Group is one of 3 companies that submitted proposals after the request for proposals was issued August 16. The deadline to submit proposals was August 23. Deloitte Consulting and CostQuest Associates also submitted proposals. Broadband Development initially submitted a proposal with a $2.75 million price tag, while CostQuest Associates of Cincinnati submitted a proposal with a cost of $533,600, and Deloitte Consulting LLP of Austin, Texas proposed to do the work for $489,273, according to state records. Unanimous choice. The proposals were scored by state officials based on cost and a technical review by one information technology employee apiece from the Commerce, Finance and Administration, and Parks, Heritage and Tourism departments. CostQuest Associates' proposal received the highest score at 881.7. Deloitte Consulting's proposal got the second highest score at 801.7. And Broadband Development's proposal was scored at 461.3, according to state records. Parks, Heritage, and Tourism Secretary Stacey Hurst told lawmakers that she, Commerce Secretary Mike Preston, and Finance and Administration Secretary Larry Walther unanimously selected broadband development. I participated in enough third world tech bids to understand the advantage of insiders. I've started at the ambassador level and country president in order to ensure success. Again, that's third world, but I did have proven product and credentials. 3, back off. The proposals were scored by state officials based on cost and a technical review by one information technology employee apiece from the Commerce, Finance and Administration, and Parks, Heritage and Tourism departments. CostQuest Associates' proposal received the highest score at 881.7. Deloitte Consulting's proposal got the second highest score at 801.7. And Broadband Development's proposal was scored at 461.3, according to state records. Hurst testified Wednesday that all 3 vendors proposed different approaches for assessing the current broadband availability in Arkansas through field verification or boots on the ground in the state, and proposed different plans to conduct community outreach. After the technical and cost scoring was completed, she said the 3 department secretaries started further evaluation of the 3 proposals, and the vendors provide more documentation and more detail. The state's information technology experts and American Rescue Plan consultant, the Center for Toxicology and Environmental Health, also were involved in these discussions, Hurst said. I am confident that this process led us to the most advantageous proposal and an outcome that will be in the best interest of the state, she said. It's our hope that we can move forward today and engage a consultant and begin the important work of increasing connectivity in Arkansas. Probably worth repeating. Though social howling has been observed within a pack, it also functions as an ominous warning to those who are not welcome. Wolves are extremely territorial and fiercely protective of their pack. This is why wolves will howl to both advertise their territory and send a clear, threatening message to those who may wander too close. This behavior is especially prevalent during mating season, when wolves are extra protective of their mates, pups, and food. A wolf answering an unknown howl from the outside is declaring his intent to stand his ground and for the potential intruder to kindly back the hell off. This is why many lone wolves traveling in uncharted territory will remain silent as to avoid any unnecessary confrontation. I met with principals of Broadband Development Group during its inception at their request in 2015. Focus of meeting was on cable TV and private cable opportunities. Their background is impeccable. However, their experience focused on startups and conversions in the most sophisticated markets in the state, all urban, nothing rural. Might note Broadband Development Group is on the 5 lobbyist lists of Martha Hill. Hill is the wife of us. Rep. French Hill, R. Ark, Morrill Harriman, Kendra Pruitt, Derek W. Smith, Ark Monroe III. Technology changes only come from a disruptive force, not suitable to the process selected by politicians. Being limited and controlled by the interests of 5 lobbyists doesn't appear disruptive, just deja vu all over again. I have expressed my concerns based on my credentials, but so far things haven't worked out. 4. I'm lonely, so I'll write a letter to editor. This kind of howl is characterized by a rise and fall, often with a slide up or down at the end. Wolves will howl when in search of a mate or in experiencing feelings of captivity or isolation. Letter to editor, Arkansas Democrat Gazette, unpublished as of this date, October 5th, 2021. As far as the $2.20 million for consultant to make broadband implementation plan, the whole process is a joke. Transparency was never an issue. For consultants who typically bid on government project, no issue with request for proposal process. When politicians agree on something, it starts becoming dicey. Next, you check ownership and lobbyists connected to the 3 companies who submitted bids. Then it gets dicier. Broadband Development Group is on 5 lobbyist lists of Martha Hill. Hill is the wife of U.S. Rep. French Hill, R. Ark, Morrill Harriman, Kendra Pruitt, Derek W. Smith, Ark Monroe III. Any new leapfrog technology affecting traditional businesses represented by the 5 lobbyists is dead on arrival. More candidly, any new broadband solutions will be aborted shortly after conception. For Yogi Berra fans, it's deja vu all over again. I've participated in enough third world tech bids to understand the advantage of insiders. I've started at the ambassador level and country president. Again, that's third world. Statement of work is nothing more than non-self-incrimination generalities. A lot of pretty broadly outcome and best interests of state. No doubt most of the politicians involved dismiss the world as flat by Thomas L. Friedman as the Bible for flat earthers. How could technology jobs be created in India, place of ignorance, poverty, and inequality? Don't realize that broadband will never be the panacea, just the enabler. For longtime technologists, major changes only come from a disruptive force. I always refer to Sam Walton as a disruptive force. Walmart Store 2 is located in Harrison. I experienced the negative and positive. My dad, pioneer in retail TV sales, was adversely affected when people voted with pocketbooks for change. Later in my international marketing for cable software, I always pointed to Sam Walton, saying there would never have been a Walmart without the success of Harrison, my home office. My credentials includes pioneer in PC software in Arkansas, although initially working on large mainframe in DC with government, and later with oil companies in Louisiana and Kentucky. Reinvention in technology comes as a necessity for survival. I founded a rural software company in the Ozarks and sold systems in over 50 countries pre-commercial internet. Many of the Y2K computer memory issues that limited the large cable system, customer care, and billing system providers who ran only on mainframes with COBOL code was the reason I was able to enter the international market first with a system on the desktop PC. As far as rural broadband, tangible value must be seen immediately. With all the smartphone apps, many no longer need the traditional computer equipment, desktop, monitor, printer to become proficient in the use of broadband. Satellite service with gigabit speed and just 20 milliseconds of latency could create a location-agnostic work network reducing need and cost for fiber. Elephant in the room is Elon Musk and Starlink, known as a disruptive force in space and electric vehicles. Lobbyists and politicians want to make things or when it should be, and important point is Starlink satellite has gigabit speed and just 20 milliseconds of latency. This will create a location-agnostic work network, reducing need for fiber. Outside, independent consultant missing in action. Herb Blair. 5. Woohoo. Wolves have been known to howl simply because they can. Wouldn't you? After a successful hunt, wolves will group together to sing their praise. They seem to genuinely enjoy it. Other members from the pack almost always show a tendency to join in a good howl. Whether this is cathartic or just a comforting bonding moment, it often attracts other members from the pack even at a distance. This community sing truly exemplifies the meaning of wild. Herb Blair bio, including rural broadband record of success. Woohoo! I was born near Bellefonte in rural Boone County, Arkansas on February 20th, 1944, near the end of World War II. Before the baby boomers, I'm a member of the seen and not heard silent generation. Birth was at home with cousin of family, Dr. Ross Fowler, providing his bartered delivery service for products and services provided by my family's business. My dad and mother, Joe and Irene Lair, were entrepreneurs starting with a Lion Oil service station, later adding a TV and appliance business. Dad was a pioneer in TV retail sales, beginning with only snowy pictures from afar from Tulsa and Memphis. My job growing up was assisting in the installation of outdoor TV antennas with at least a 50-foot mast in all kinds of weather. So later, I personally welcomed cable TV. That connection to my evolution in computers to be explained later in more detail. I attended Bellefonte and Valley Springs public schools. I was encouraged in mathematics by my school superintendent, J.D. Barnett, Jr. After my junior year, I attended the National Science Foundation Summer Science Program and did well competing with other students, ending up in the top 3. I played on a state basketball team at Valley Springs for legendary coach J.B. Dickey, father of James and Randall Dickey. I was valedictorian. I graduated from the University of Arkansas with a BA in mathematics, arts, and sciences in 3 years. I married Sandy Lair in my senior year and then entered graduate school. My temporary jobs ranged from stomping grapes at Welch's, to mowing, to working as a waiter, to teaching at Valley Springs and Fayetteville. After graduating with a Master of Science degree in mathematics, I headed to Washington, D.C. to work at the CIA in Langley, Virginia. IBM computer mainframe in the multi-million-dollar category. Scientific programmer, mainly Fortran, required code word above top secret clearance. At times we required block time on the mainframe. All things on a need to know. Unfortunately, 1968 interrupted my career plans. Next, I worked in Lake Charles, Louisiana for a gas conglomerate, CAGC, Continental Atlantic Richfield. Getty and City Service controlling offshore gas wells. Flew out to platforms via helicopter. Mini computer used to control wells, particularly during hurricane season. Technology later important for controlling cable TV devices. Next move was Ashland Oil and Operations Research, where I helped with corporate acquisitions and designed and developed least cost distribution system from refinery to delivery zip code using pipeline, barge, tankers, rail, and trucks, as well as calculating differentials for swapping with other oil companies at their refineries or key distribution points, saving hundreds of millions. Mainframe using RPG code. Birth of daughter with oral facial digital syndrome. Was heavily involved in returning home to Harrison and joining family business, who owned a service station, TV, and appliance business, and now a housing development business. After return and after reviewing opportunities, I began the initial stages of starting a computer service bureau caveman stage of running from the cloud. Finding affordable computer and software were the keys. I decided the IBM System 3 Model 10 and RPG were my choices. Next, I determined there was a national company with service bureau software running on the System 3. Western Union Computer Utilities, complete with training at headquarters in FT Lauderdale, was the beginning. Reason my company was called Computer Utilities of the Ozarks, Inc. I started buying time at an insurance company in Springfield, Missouri, 70 miles away, to get my first business operational outside layer enterprises, including Dogpatch Park payroll and general ledger. A lot of prep and checking and rechecking prior to the trip. Couldn't afford to screw up on payroll. All was keyed and verified on 96 column cards. Next, I was able to make a deal with Bank of Yellville 25 miles away, which eventually led to local agreement with Guarantee Savings and Loan via Royce Barrett. In a small community, handling a diversity of business is survival. I provided computer accounting services for manufacturing, distributors, retailers, schools, pharmacies, doctors, water billing, and cable TV. Although successful in my market, Western Union wasn't in other big markets, leading to their bankruptcy. But CU. The godsend was that we franchisees were awarded the source code, allowing for customization. Bowell and Ledbetter, MDs and owners of Ozark Orthopedics, bought the Guarantee S and L computer and moved it to my location in back of TV and appliance building at the recommendation of their CPA. We handled their medical records and insurance processing at no cost, but had use of computer for Service Bureau business. In parallel to my standard accounting applications, I was developing a customer care and billing system for Twin Lakes Cable TV. Bob Wheeler, one of several nationally recognized founders of cable TV, was my dad's best golfing buddy. Bob also owned local radio station, Co's AM/FM. Bob Wheeler had two sons, and following his death, W.J. owned the radio station, and Bobby owned Twin Lakes Cable. Initial code was in RPG and ran on the System 3. At that time, subscribers got just the basic broadcast channels with a $3.50 MO. Coupon book, then cable, started offering Little Rock stations with attention to the Razorbacks, and cable took off. Note to Cox in its loss of subscribers. Now you can pay in the $200 a month range for TV and internet. Streaming has created an a la carte competitor. Next stage was satellite, and the Ted Turner era. Ted was cable when cable wasn't cool. In 1976, the FCC allowed WTCG to use a satellite to transmit content to local cable TV providers around the nation, making the Atlanta Braves America's team, even though no one attended games in person. Although Bob Wheeler and my dad were longtime golfing buddies, we entered a new era when Bob's son and I got involved in computerized cable billing. The opportunity allowed me to spend time in their office observing and building mutual respect from three elderly customer service women represented by Office Manager Harriet Lindsay. Although the initial stage was Service Bureau, the next stage was developing an in-house solution. A lot of things to consider when you develop an in-house solution. Ease of use, error checking, reasonability, training, support, customer care, accuracy, auditability, suitability, software, and platform. Takes, even on the small system level, 3 to 4 times the code and system design and effort for anything handled by our Service Bureau. After research, I decided the IBM series, with its EDEX event-driven operating, was the best platform for an in-house system. I combined it with Prompt Database to provide report writing features along with the technical capability to control and operate addressable interfaces to key set-top box manufacturers and key add-ons, including interactive voice commands and access to multiple key operational expansions. I still tell startups the most important thing is having evangelists, not on your payroll. The next thing is getting a system installed outside your immediate area. Proof of success is your second system, coincidentally in Rogers, Arkansas. We had that one similarity in reverse to Walmart starting in Rogers and Store 2 in Harrison. In my international marketing, I always pointed to Sam Walton, saying there would never have been a Walmart without the success of Harrison, something supported by newspaper quotes and analysts in encyclopedia.com. Some analysts believe that without the success of the Harrison store, there would not be a Walmart company today. Many U.S. systems were sold by the success of Rogers, and later its acquirer Donry Media Group, and a reference letter from their controller. After a few years of successes throughout the U.S., the PC came on the scene and proved to be disruptive to sales. At first, we were able to find an emulator to run our series software on a PC, but found we were forced to rewrite software to run under DOS and later Windows to maximize benefits. As lower-cost hardware became available, our Service Bureau business could no longer be depended on long-term. Many were finding vertical market software to serve their needs. Now it's all about apps on the smartphone, another reinvention using the desktop as our platform. Reinvention in technology comes as a necessity for survival. I reflect on the fact that I founded a rural software company in the Ozarks and sold systems in over 50 countries pre-commercial internet. Many of the Y2K computer memory issues that limited the large cable system customer care and billing system providers who ran only on mainframes with COBOL code was the reason I was able to enter the international market first with a system on the desktop PC. At the same time, there was a lot of consolidation in the U.S. markets with systems valued at $1,000 per sub quadrupling to $4,000 with new inexperienced operators entering the business. One important group of smaller systems was Time Warner National Division. After an extensive review and audit of our system, we were chosen. This became an auspicious occasion for our entry into the international market as well. Time Warner National Division was located in Denver, Colorado. UIH, predecessor to Liberty Global, was headquartered there, pre-internet. Much of our marketing was word of mouth and attending state, regional, and national shows. Attendance and exhibiting were critical to building credibility. Sites.google.com/site/quarant/home. Link has several news references in state and national papers. International market proved interesting and challenging. One of the first installations was in frozen Val-d'Or, Quebec, Canada, facilitated though IBM in Toronto. Another was past the international dateline in tropical Saipan. That sale was direct, coming from marketing mail-outs. Most economical support was via fax machine since calls to Saipan were $3 a minute. My choice, owner's prerogative, was to handle the tropical Saipan installation. Sales to operators in the Caribbean had their intricacies as well. Once an owner asked our installer to bring equipment as luggage to avoid custom delays. Our installer was locked up behind a chicken wire fence and the operator bailed him out. Just their way of doing business. Quickly determining direct sales weren't going to work, so the acceptance of our bid UIH in Hungary was welcoming. UIH, headquartered in Denver, came to us via a consultant whom we had developed a business relationship with. All reported in a national cable publication titled Unlikely Player. Coincidentally, our consultant Paul Case's office was next to UIH controller Mike Freeze. Mike Freeze became the right-hand man of John Malone and the chief executive officer and vice chairman of Liberty Global, a world leader in converged broadband video and mobile communications. UIH installed our system in Hungary, Spain, Romania, South America, the Philippines, and even Tahiti. Other systems followed in Taiwan, China, Indonesia, and old USSR countries. Owners and investors included Larry Hillblum, the H, and DHL Freight, John Kluge, billionaire, once the richest man in U.S. and founder of Metro Media, invested in systems throughout Russia with our system, and former Governor Jim Guy Tucker and James Ridey Lippo Group in Jakarta. All the success drew attention from largest cable customer care and billing system headquartered in Sacramento. It wasn't a hard choice or easy choice when they made offer to merge. Access to capital in Arkansas was incredibly difficult. We had been passive and reactive in sales, so this opportunity allowed us to take it to the next level. I stayed on for 5 years primarily in global business development while keeping the title of president of QO. Sidebar name was changed from Computer Utilities of the Ozarks, Inc. to QO, Inc. At management meetings, I used humor asking what QO stood for. My answer was just QO. Also, the Arkansas connection told them I was taken on tour of Napa Valley but just tasted, didn't swallow Clinton was president. One meeting I observed it seemed strange someone from London was speaking on revolution while someone from the Ozarks was talking on technology and innovation. My findings as a consultant is business development is the piece no one wants to invest in. Too many startups have a great idea and think the world is waiting with open arms to buy it. Field of Dreams, build and they will come has been way oversold. One of the reasons I wanted to give detail to steps I've taken realizing circumstances can change due to location and business environment. However, there are certain steps you can't skip. I've written several articles, so we'll discuss on level of interest, like celebrate support, love insightful funny, comment to view.